When working on episodes of a project that have the same look and feel, you tend to always add the same elements to your project. If it's an opening sequence or credits, possibly even some type of sound effects, I'm going to show you how to make a template project that you can continuously go into and save a ton of time so you don't have to look for all those assets across your hard drives, and they're already there and you're ready to create and input the footage that's needed for just that project. Alright, so when you start up DaVinci Resolve, this is the kind of screen that you see. It's just all the projects that you've been working on recently. And what we're going to do here is I'm already under the perception that you have worked on a project. You already have a look and feel that is going to be continuous throughout all the different episodes or series or whatever it may be. So I made this demo project here, and we're just gonna go into it quick. I have a intro, and then I also have that subscribe button that I use. And one thing that you'll notice is that this subscribe button has the video, and then it also has audio. And this little button, or this little icon right here, is just stating that it's a timeline of its own. If you click right here, click this button, you can see multiple timelines. As you can see, I have a subscribe timeline. And it's just a image sequence that I have here, which is just this animation. And then I have audio that I made that goes along with it. Okay, so since they're both separate entities, they're not the same file. If I was to add those to a timeline, moving one would only move the one. They wouldn't be linked. You could link them, but I like to just make timelines just because it's a lot easier to implement them into a project. So it's a timeline, so I can just move it around, and then I can click on it, click this button, and then that's how I just moved it down here, and bam, that's that. I have a video, and obviously the audio is connected to that, but this one doesn't have any audio, and that's just an intro sequence. And then throughout here, this would be just the footage that would be used for the project itself. So that stuff is always going to be changing. So what we want to do is we want to add in these elements that are always used. Lower thirds, so like if you're watching the news, they have like a lower thirds, those sort of elements. Maybe you have like a logo that you always add, maybe you have a watermark that you always add. These kind of things we want to bring into a project, and then when we open our new project, those things are already there, so we don't have to waste any time with always looking for them and bringing them into a project. Trying to eliminate as many steps as possible on the repetitive stuff. We're going to go under the assumption that you already have your project, and all we're going to do now is we're going to create a project with all of the elements that we already have, and we're just going to make a template. So the first thing that I want to do, because I know some people don't do this, is you're going to create bins. So I kind of create a ton of bins. So if I click right here, this was the day that we shot this. And then I have like stuff that you can't even see these just because it's just like text files and stuff. But I have the stuff that we export from Adobe, and then this was shot with the Phantom. So I have all of the videos here. So this kind of thing you wouldn't need. But then when I have like the animations and stuff like that, and the intros, and then the potential music stuff, we're going to put those into bins instead of just having them in the master. Clean up your project as much as possible so that, like I said, this is going to be a template, so you always know where to get those things, and it's not just all cluttered right in the master area. So I would say do that first. Once we have all of that done, now we can just go through and keep an idea of the things that you want to copy over. So I'm going to want to copy over this. I don't want the audio because the audio I'm going to always be changing for all of my projects on this. So I really just want to have this intro sequence and this subscribe button. Those are the main things. And then if I had like an outro, I'd probably have that in here too. So I have one video file and then one timeline that I'm going to be copying over, and I want the project files, the bins, to be here as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to come down here to the little house, which is our project manager, and then we have our project here. Because when you create projects, they all just get cluttered in here the same way that the master does if you just bring everything into the master. What we're going to be doing here is we're actually going to make a folder, and this folder, you can name it whatever. The folder is just going to have all of the episodes or all of that series in one folder, so that when you are looking for if you're working on a ton of different types of projects, everything for that one type of project is in one folder. Just a way to clean this up a bit. So I'm just going to make so I'm going to create my JR demo, and now because we have this project loaded currently, we won't be able to move it. And we want to move this demo, which would be one of our episodes, into this project folder. So all we're going to do is just exit that, come up here, we're going to quit. I guess I moved that. So now we're going to restart. Here we are, just easy drag and drop, drag it in, drop it in. A little up here just says how many projects are currently in this folder. Now we have this folder here. So all we're going to do is just load it again, and now that it's in the folder, now we're inside that folder. As you can see down here, it says the folder that we're in. We can come back to the home, but what we're going to do is we're going to come into that folder, and then we're going to right click, and you're going to enable the dynamic project switching. If it's not enabled, the check mark means that it's enabled. Once it's enabled, then we can come in and we can make a new project. So episode 2. Okay, now we're in the episode 2, or you can make this temp or template or whatever you want it to be named. If you come up here, now you can jump between the different projects. So now that we can jump between the different projects, one big thing that you'll notice is that you don't have to save to go into another project. That is one big thing that the dynamic projects. The other thing that we're going to do is you can take stuff. So if I wanted to take like this whole sequence that I have here, the timeline, I highlighted everything, Control C to copy, and then come over to the other one, Control V, boom, it's in here. But you'll notice that it just dumped everything into the master. So that's one thing that we would have to take care of. One thing that is nice though, this is still a timeline. So if we were to pop this open, click here, we still have that, which is really nice. The other little tip that I wanted to say is anything that you bring into your template, you would want to make sure that it's on storage that stays with your machine. So you don't really want to have it on like a flash drive or any type of external storage that you disconnect, because if it's disconnected and you want to start up another project, if DaVinci can't find that file, then you're going to be kind of luck, and you're not going to be able to work with that template because you're just going to get errors. So I would say to move anything that you're going to be consistently using to some type of storage device that will stay kind of permanent with that machine, so you don't have to deal with all of those headaches. Okay, so I'm going to hit back to undo that. I'm going to come over to my demo, and now in my demo I'm going to come over here and I'm going to copy anything that I want to copy over. When you're in your master, you'll see all of your folders here, or bins. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm holding Control right now, and these, and then I'm just going to hit Control C. I'm going to come over to my demo, Control V. Now I have all the stuff from the other project. So now that I have everything copied over, it did copy over the timeline one, so I did bring in this media here. If that's stuff you don't want, we can just go into here and get rid of the stuff that we don't want. We don't want that stuff because that's going to be different for every project. And we don't even really, I mean, if you want a particular, if you want the timeline pre-set up and then you just have to plop the stuff in, you can do that. But for my needs, I'll just make a new timeline, so I don't even want that. So now that I have this stuff in here, we're just going to hit save. So we're in right now the template. I hit save. So now we have this template. So now how would we use this continuously? I guess would be the next question. So I'm just going to quit here. So now we're going to jump in here. This demo 2, remember that was our template. Your name's going to be different. We're going to be right clicking on this and open as read-only mode. And then once we do that, we can just start working as if this is our new project. So I'm going to quickly bring in some stock. So we're going to be working on this one now. Now that I have all of this media in here, I'm going to start using this. So we're going to just create a new timeline, and then I can just start bringing this stuff in and start working with it. So I can bring my subscribe in. Wait, why am I? Okay, here we go. I can bring my subscribe in, and then I can come into my intro. I can bring my intro in, and then I would have to bring in my music and all of that. And then we can start working. So as you see up here, it says read only. So if I was to save this, so if I went to save project, it's going to ask me, what do I want to save this? So this is the next episode. We just save it as 3. Now it's going to save, and as you can see, we jumped over to E3, our next project. And now if we would go back and open our other project, that new stuff that we added isn't here. So this is how we would be making our template. So that's kind of how you would make the template to bring in the project files. I want to go over a couple of other little tips to save some time. If you're working with sound effects, if you have like Foley, or you just have like a random sound effect that you use a bit or used often, I did go over how the sound library works, but it's kind of, you bring all of your music, all the little sound clips that you have, and then they all go in that database, and you can just search for whatever you want. So I want a whip sound. Perfect, got my whip sound. I can just drag it and drop it right in. I did go over how to use this, so if you look on my channel, I can it'll explain how to use that. So all of my sound effects, I never have to go and find them in any type of file manager or anything like that. I can just search by the name, and then you can rank that. You can do a ton of different things with it. I did want to shed some light on that, just so you guys know if you didn't know much about that. The other thing too is if I come over to the media side, one thing that I do use is I use these favorites, and favorites are just locations on a drive. So you can obviously go through all of your drives, but if I wanted something out of the YouTube assets, I can click on this, and then it'll bring up that subscribe button. So that's an easy way to get to a couple of files that you commonly use. You could use this even for if you have a big library of songs like I have here. You could have it just simply go to that instead of having to always navigate to all of those. Reducing as many clicks and steps as possible so that you can get content out quicker, and you can be more in the zone of creating stuff instead of just having to find files and struggling to find where they exist. So that is kind of how I went about doing those things. There are a couple of other things that you can do. I'm just going to come back over to my demo 2, just because I have a lot of content in here already, and I wanted to show you one other thing, or excuse me, the demo itself. Alright, so now that I'm in here, all of this stuff is already colored, so I don't really have to do anything, but let me find some media here. that isn't colored yet. Here, perfect. So this shot isn't colored. I'm going to come over to the color tab. So let's say in our primary project that we've been working on, we have a really good color grade that we have going here, right? So I'm just going to move all this stuff just to create a look quick. So let's say we had a great look going that we really like and we want to use it in our other projects. One of the things that we can do is if we right click and we grab still, it'll bring it over here if we open up the gallery to the stills album. Stills album is really good if you're looking at multiple versions or you're showing a client multiple different looks that you've been working on. It's a good way to store them. What they pretty much do is it makes a little one of the cool things that it does is it lets you preview it here, and if it's a look that you want to apply, middle mouse and it'll add all of the nodes that you have. This is kind of like LUTs, but significantly more powerful in a lot of different ways. And I can make a video about why they're more powerful and they're far superior to LUTs, but keeping with the subject of making as least steps as possible, what we can do is we can take this still and we can put it over here into a power grade album. The power grade album gets shared across the whole DaVinci Resolve database. So if we're working on any other project, all of the projects will have access to any power grade album that we have within that database. So we can just right click and make another power grade album. You can double click, change the name of it to whatever you want, and then all of these will be shared amongst all of the projects. The stills album will just get shared within all of the shots of that particular project. So maybe you're working on a YouTube series that you keep creating different projects. You can put that into a power grade album. If you're working on a short movie or something that's very specific just for that one, you can put it into the stills library. So when you go into another project, you could just simply say, okay, I want to add that look that we have been using. You just middle mouse, boom, it adds all of the nodes. And the cool thing about this compared to LUTs is I can go into each particular setting and change something. So maybe someone didn't use the proper exposure or settings or whatever it may be. I can go into each node that built this look and then I can adapt them to match my needs. So that is one other thing that I wanted to share with you guys. It's another step to save a lot of time. Since we're in the progress of moving down, we can just jump right into Fairlight. And in Fairlight, we have a couple of things that I just wanted to shed some light on. The main one that I personally use quite often is if you bring up an effect, and let's say we use the Fairlight effects. One of the ones that I use is this voice channel. So once you have this open and you have figured out how you want it to affect your audio, you can come up to here and then you could hit save and it'll ask you what do you want to save this preset as. Once you have it saved, it'll be within this drop down, so you can just simply click it. You would just you would just add it in, right? Say, okay, I want this, boom, come up here, boom, done. All of your audio now will always sound the same. I wish they added it to the dynamics because I actually use this quite often, but they didn't add it to this. When you're working, let's say we were working with one of the VSTs, it kind of sucks because there isn't a way to save anything here yet that I know of. So that kind of sucks, but if you're using the Fairlight effects, I believe that it's on all the Fairlight effects here at the top to adjust or to save like little presets. So that is one other thing that you can do. Going down the things all the way down to the Deliver tab. Now in here, if you're working with, let's say you're working on a project that needs to get sent out to multiple places, maybe you go to YouTube, then you go to Vimeo, you put one on Facebook, one on Instagram, a couple of different locations, or if you're working with a local company that wants it very specific, you could come into here and you could create a custom preset. So you just add in whatever you want this to be, whatever your settings are, and then you would just come up here to save as new preset. You type in the name, and then it'll just come up here. And then once it's up here, then you'll have all of your settings that you have commonly used. But if you're going out to multiple different locations, you're going to want to save multiple different types of files. So you could just simply come up here and you can create an additional video output, and then there'll just be as many that you add down here, and you can go in and say, okay, I want this to be this with that, whatever it may be. You can also put it in a subfolder, so maybe in your primary folder you have exports, and then inside there you'll have the main one, and then Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, whatever the locations are, you can then add it in here, and it'll make those subfolders within whatever the primary folder is that you are using to render out to. So I think that covers everything for project templates. It's a really good way to save a lot of time when working with the same look and feel on a couple of different episodes throughout a series of videos. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this one. If you have any other ideas or suggestions, leave them down there as well. Again, my name's JR, and thanks for watching.